to the WFNY CornerCast, part of the Evergreen Podcast Network. I am your host, Joe Gerberry, or Gerbs, and I am here with Mitchell Krall and Ethan Forness. We are here for episode 2 of the newly minted, newly named WFNY CornerCast. How do you guys feel about the new name?
I like it. I mean, I feel like when we were going through the naming process, it was kind of curious that there aren't that many like images associated with this franchise, which is kind of sad. But the corner of Carnegie, Ontario is a classic one, and I feel
Right,
like it's a good one.
for sure. I think it goes back to the rebrand. We just don't have a lot of history in Guardians right now, so we nothing really to pull back on. That's what I thought, but
The
No,
team
that
had
I
is,
not
think
done a lot of history.
The name came from Ethan. Who gave you the name? Did you say, or was that from you?
Actually, Evan, who was in our Discord, is the one who messaged me and sent me the idea. So a member of our
Fantastic.
Discord has the name of the podcast. We will have
Hats
to give
off.
him a nice pat on the back.
Hats
we
off
listen.
to him.
We listen to our Discord members.
We do every once in a while.
They're
Yeah,
smarter than us sometimes.
Some very, very often they are smarter than us. So let's do some news and notes. We actually have a free agency signing, guys. It's no one really interesting. No, Brian Shaw is back with the organization. Signed a $900K major league deal to be the veteran out of the bullpen. Mitchell, where do you think he's going to end up? Is he going to be the eighth inning guy, the seventh inning guy? Is he going to be first one out of the bullpen? Where do you think he's going to slot in? Just right at the top of your head.
Yeah, I mean, I really hope he's not the seventh or eighth inning guy. I'm fine with this signing because this bullpen is so high variance. There are so many guys, we don't even really know who is slotted in. So, Brian Shaw is an arm. He can throw the ball. He can, conceivably he can throw strikes and get batters out sometimes. So like it's better than, I don't know, some sort of crazy high variance innings we could have had there instead. But if he's going in the high leverage innings, that's kind of a waste of that opportunity that could go to a young arm.
Yeah, I don't think we brought him in for the high leverage opportunities. This has a lot of a Scott Atchison feel to me, where we're bringing in that inveterate guy that's been in the system forever. He knows how the pitching development program works, no matter what pitching coach is at the helm. He's worked with several of them now. He's going to be a middle relief guy, but he's really going to be there to coach the likes of Eli Morgan, Sam Henches. If Logan Allen is lucky enough to somehow survive spring training and not get DFA'd, he's there for those guys. It's funny, though. He's somehow only 34 years old. He's another one of those guys that feels like he's been around forever, but he's definitely that X that Cleveland just keeps going back to.
That's a pretty good way of putting it. When the signing came through today, it was met with of course, Brian Shaw is back, and I think that's was the resounding feelings amongst the Guardians fans and amongst our Discord, at least on the private side. But we all know Tito likes his bullpen shuffle, and there's nobody that's more of a dance partner with Tito than Brian Shaw, so it shouldn't be that much of a surprise to us out here. The other news: 2 injuries recently that came up. One came from today. We just mentioned it real quick, just about the Luke Maley injury. During today's spring training game, he had a left hamstring strain. He was slated to be the backup catcher. He is on the 40-man roster now, I believe. It was Carlos Vargas, right, that went down for him. They got moved
Back
to
to the
60
60
day.
day. Yeah.
Right. So, Mitch, you were wanting to talk about this just in terms of depth that we have organizationally for the catcher spot. What were your comments on that one?
Oh, no. I just thought there was a moment, and it sounds like it's not going to be so bad, hopefully, knock on wood. But there was just a moment where it was like, oh, of course this guy gets hurt immediately, and we're either going to have to go with Sandy Leone or they're going to have to go with a prospect in Brian Labastida, who may be ready, maybe isn't. It just goes to show, like, when you are so stingy and refuse to kind of add to the organization, like, this is the kind of thing that can happen. Like you're a hamstring strain away from like all your plans getting ruined with your prospects and kind of their growth. And yeah, it's just kind of sad. That's all.
Ethan, any comments about Luke Maley here?
So it's really unfortunate, and there's a couple of factors that led us to being in the roster crunch that we are at. But I will say, with what do we have, 11 games left of spring training, I think all signs are pointing to a couple of guys on the fringe getting DFA'd before this is all said and done. Maley went down, but we had to move a guy on the 40-man to the 60-day to add him. Now we've signed Shaw to a major league deal with no space, so expect our next guy moving to the 60-day DL sometime later this week when we bring him up to make room for Shaw. But that being said, you're playing that musical chair. It's the last chair left. Where are we supposed to put Sandy Leone without getting rid of somebody? Because even with Maley down, we don't have space for anybody besides Hedges and Lavastida.
Well, hopefully he's back. Hopefully he's back by the time. Hopefully it's
Right.
not serious. But I think it just goes to show like catching is kind of a position that sees a lot of attrition. So I would be willing to bet we will see some Sandy Leone time this year. And also you bring up who's going to get moved to the 60-day IL next, and that kind of segues into the other bit of injury news today that Cody Morris is out for 4 to 6 weeks. Did I see?
He is shut down for 4 to 6 weeks. No throwing on with a Trey's major muscle injury in his throwing shoulder. So after the 4 to 6 weeks, then he'll be readjusted or reevaluated and see where he's going from there. But that puts him out at least the first month of the season. Probably longer though, because he hasn't even finished his throwing program. But that was a guy that we've talked about as being someone who could either be part of the rotation by the end of the year or coming out of opening day and being in the bullpen. But that's a big injury to Cleveland's pitching depth that got really worked over last year and then stripped down with some of the cuts that they had to make to that 40-man. We lost, JC Mejia, which isn't, some of these guys aren't much, but they are losses, and just that they're arms that we used last year. But Morris being out is something that's a pretty big loss there.
Yeah, this teres major injury. It's the same as Mike Clevenger a couple of years back.
Mm-hmm.
In the beginning of the year, he was out there throwing 98, and it was like a new Mike Clevenger, and then he immediately hurt himself. It's like an upper back muscle, and it's been increasing in frequency in Major League Baseball recently, but I'd never heard of it happening before Mike Clevenger just a few years ago.
It does. It probably got lumped in with a little bit of like back strain.
Yeah, that could be. We've gotten more scientific with like what the public knows. But yeah, it is a bummer. But luckily they did address that upper minors pitching depth beyond just him. They've got Tobias Myers, they've got Connor Pilkington. So at least if it does need to be tested, they shouldn't be in the same situation as last year when JC Mejia hadn't pitched above A ball and then got called up to the majors.
Yeah, and this is just unfortunate for Cody too, who by all accounts from scouts and people in the organization, that he's got the ability to be a solid middle to lower part of the rotation guy. He just has not been able to stay healthy. He's getting up there in age. Started falling off prospect lists this year, mostly just because of the age. When he's healthy, he still has the stuff, and his numbers show that. But I don't know. I was looking earlier. I don't know if he's made more than 11 starts in a season. And has even made some appearances out of the bullpen relatively consistently in his time with in the minors to try and preserve him as much as they can. So it's just unfortunate that, you don't want to put the injury-prone tag on a guy, but Cody's not been very lucky.
It's a shame. Dude throws 97. Would look real nice in a Guardians uniform.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Yep. I was just looking at his Fangraphs real quick. He 12 2019 he started 11 games. 2021 he had 8, 5, 13, and 1, so 14 games. Started last year, so yeah, there's a lot of issues with the injury. I don't enjoy that you said a guy getting up there in age and he's 25, but we're talking prospect wise, so
Too
it's
long in the tooth for a prospect is different than sports old.
100%, yes. But yeah,
college guy.
I
gonna-
don't know.
Yeah.
Ethan, you might be able to speak to that. You wrote here your preview about him this year, so
I don't believe he was. He might have been a prep guy, but I could also be very wrong. At 25, and he's only been in the minors a few years, he might have been at least a junior. But I don't remember off the top of my head which university he went to.
Yeah, it was a 2018 draft, so he was. That's the only thing I can see on the Fangraphs page. But
so he
he was high school. Oh no. He was college, South Carolina.
Oh,
so yeah, got to stay healthy if you're drafted to college. No
sure. The other part of we had 2 more bits of news and notes. There was a rumor today that was perked up the Discord was very warranted. The red light treatment alarms going off in the Discord. Andre Knott of Bally Sports, or I don't know exactly what he was on Fox 8 News. Was reported that Jose Ramirez's representation was in Goodyear to work out a possible extension. Unfortunately, it was about an hour or so later that those red lights got turned off when his agent actually tweeted out saying that he was in LA and not in Goodyear. But there has to be some sort of smoke along with this fire. I feel like as we documented last week, that it makes absolute just absolute certain sense that an extension works for Cleveland, works for Jose, that there's no reason that they shouldn't be doing this. And so we were super excited about that. Everybody was jumping on board, but with the quick fire extinguisher tweet saying that his agent was actually in LA, Bodie tweeted out that, or it was on our Discord saying it's only a 5-hour drive, only a 30-minute flight if he wants to fly back and forth. But who's to say that that's not what he did? But to come out and say it didn't actually happen, where that's some a little bit of dirt thrown on the fire there. Go ahead.
I was going to say, and that's where I think that the smoke is with the fire, because Andre not a newsbreaker, but he is around the dugout, the players, and the coaches enough that if he heard something that big that he felt was credible to share it, I don't think he would have just said that. But at the same time, the Guardians organization runs such a tight ship that you never hear things like this leak out. Now, granted, Jose's agent is just one guy who runs his own firm, and he's very proud of that, Rafa Nieves. And there's no saying that he may have just been messing. He could very well have just had a stop on his way to Goodyear. He also reps George Valera, for the record, so he would also have reason to be in Cleveland, or not in Cleveland, but at their spring training facility in Arizona. So there's enough here to not just write it off because the agent said he was in LA when it was told, but it's definitely more breadcrumbs than a concrete lead.
I mean, this is the first we've ever heard of it, really, other than like things through Zach Meisel, whom I respect and enjoy, and if he hears something, I believe it. But this is like, directly from a team employee that Jose Ramirez could be re-signed. I mean, that's exactly the kind of thing that this team needs to do, like as soon as possible, not just for PR, but for its competitive window. I mean, if not now, when? They're the youngest team in the major leagues by far. There's no foreseeable path to contention without Jose Ramirez, at least in the foreseeable future. We know they have money coming in. We know about this Apple deal. They have, and we know about the possible sale. I mean, there's really if they want to pretend or say that they are committed to winning and they don't sign Jose Ramirez, we should not take them seriously anymore. We really shouldn't. Because I mean, it just makes too much sense. It just makes all the sense in the world.
Yeah, absolutely. We've talked about it to death last week, but yeah, and you guys got it all right there on the head. So the other thing, last bit of news and notes for this week, we had arbitration deadline come through, or at least matching numbers, exchanging numbers, and Cleveland, as per usual. I think we've only had one arbitration case in the last decade, but they were able to agree with all of their guys. They had seven arbitration cases: Fran Mill, Reyes, Shane Bieber, Ahmed Rosario, Austin Hedges, Cal Quantrill, Bradley Zimmer, and Josh Naylor. All of those are guys that are looking, with the exception of possibly Bradley Zimmer, are looking at guys that could be or should be probably be in the with the team for the season. The only one that was underneath Fangraph's projected numbers for were Bradley Zimmer, but as I said, Cleveland has a long history of not going to arbitration cases, so it's not really a surprise to me, at least, that they were going over slot a little bit to get these guys in, make sure that everything was good. Bodie was kind of saying in our Discord that maybe some of the lack of movement was because they were waiting for these ARB numbers to get done, so they could know where their payroll was for this year, so they knew how much money they had going in and going out. It would help someone like Ahmed Rosario, because now Cleveland can say, we know he's making X dollars. What are you going to get us for in return for this? Ethan, do you think there's any kind of what was your favorite number out of there? Obviously, Shane Bieber $6 million, Fred Mill 4.55. Ahmed actually got a little bit more. He was 4.95, but he's also been around a little bit longer, up in the majors. Hedgie got 4 mil, Cal Quantrill 2.51, and Bradley 1.3, Josh Naylor 1.2. Was there anything that you like out of those numbers?
Yeah, so
go ahead.
There's two that I really like out of there. First is Fran Mill at 4.55 mil. He's had some health issues too, but he's worked really hard on his conditioning and really wants to get to 550 plate appearances this year. That man has talked about nothing but wanting to hit 40 home runs in a season, and he's got the ability to do it. He just needs to stay in games, stay healthy, stay at the dish. I really love that he spent the offseason working out with Juan Soto, working on his pitch recognition, working on trying to draw more walks or drag out his at-bats a little bit more instead of chasing. I've seen a couple of his at-bats so far this spring, and he definitely looks a lot more patient at the plate. He's not faced significant caliber arms just yet. The first week of spring training, it feels like everybody threw out their A-ball guys. But he does look really comfortable up there, which is nice. So I really like that number for a guy who, if he does get 550 plate appearances, nobody would be surprised if he hit 40 bombs. And the other one I like is Cal Quantrill, who wound up his second half of the season last year, earned him that Super 2 designation. So he got to start arbitration a little bit early, so he gets rewarded for his performance. And 2.51 for a guy who's probably going to be our 3 or 4 this year, not a bad number at all.
Yeah. Mitch, how do you feel about the numbers? Anything that was pointed out to you?
Yeah, no, I don't know. I mean, this is about what you'd expect. I've heard some people grumble about, holding on to Bradley Zimmer. I understand the frustration. He's making about what you'd expect a guy in his role to be, like a kind of a no bat, good fielder, fourth outfielder type. He's making about what Brett Phillips is making down in Tampa. I mean, this is a pretty normal expected number for him. I mean, this is about what we expected, just a little over what we expected. The biggest thing for me is exactly what you said about Ahmed Rosario. I'm on the trade Rosario bandwagon. I've been on it for a while. So, give him some certainty. offer him up in some trades, preferably to Oakland for one catcher. That would be ideal. But yeah, not other than that. I'm this all seemed like good numbers.
Yeah, I agree. I wasn't really blown away or anything. I mean, I'm super excited to have Shane Bieber pitch for us for $6 million.
Yeah.
When you look at his dollar to WAR ratio, that's way off the charts. But that leads us into where we're going to go tonight. We're going to go to our pitcher preview this week. We only have We only have this podcast and next before opening day, so we're going to look over the pitchers today. I had everybody pick out some bold predictions. We all had one prediction that was, or at least one prediction that was player specific for us. Then we had a couple that we bounced around and agreed with, or at least different pitchers that we all had different feelings about. I'll start off. My big one that I had that was only mine. I said Aaron Savale is going to lead the team in innings pitched. I have long been on a Aaron Savale believer. As much as the numbers don't scream that I should get off the sell my stock, get off the train, get off the bandwagon. I just like what he does. I've always enjoyed guys that are able to pitch to contact as much as it can come back and bite them. Getting that those out pitches and getting out of the inning with a good ground ball. That's been Savale for me, and that's where I've always wanted to enjoyed pitchers. I grew up knowing that I was not going to be a pitcher or be a power guy. So I actually really enjoyed Greg Maddux growing up, and Savale has some of that Maddux feel to him, for me at least. Maybe not with the pinpoint command, but the ability to pitch to contact and get out of innings as easily as he can. He's the quintessential innings eater, and I see him going a little bit further than Bieber with innings pitched. But that's my single one that I have. I was the only one that mentioned Savale in our bold predictions. Mitchell, give me one of your bold predictions.
Okay. Yeah. So I guess I'll go with Zach Plesac. All right. My bold prediction with Zach Plesac is that it's not really a bold prediction. It's more of an observation. In that basically in 2020, Zach Plesac's command of his pitches was truly incredible. And it led to, a really, really special season for him. He walked under a batter per inning. And I'm pulling up his stats now. Yeah, he was truly incredible at a 2.28 ERA, not, a little lucky, but like a 3.39 FIP and a 3.43 StatCast ERA. So not, still extremely good. And then in 2021, he had a 4.67 ERA and a FIP to match it. So, which pitcher is he? And I'm going to lean, just because I'm an eternal optimist, I'm going to say that Zach Plesac is Cleveland's number 2 pitcher by season's end, which is a huge zag for me as the in-house Plesac hater. But I really think he has the tools. I think there's an article to be written here I wrote. But basically what the difference between his 2020 and his 2021 is his command of his pitches, and specifically his command around the zone. In 2021, he actually got ahead of batters slightly more effectively in 2020. The difference is in 2020, he was putting batters away. It was incredible. His WOBA, while ahead of the count, was 186 compared to 261 in 2021. And one of the big differences was the fact that he used his slider in these situations in 2020. He used it over 1 out of every 3 pitches he threw was his slider, compared to just over 1 out of every 4. Might not sound like a big deal, but that is a big deal. That's a massive increase in slider usage, or decrease in this case. And his WOBA against his slider in 2020 was absolutely absurd in these situations. It was 0.71. No one could touch his slider when he was ahead in the count in 2020, and it's because he was nailing the corners with it. 2021, they was up more higher in the zone, more over the plate. It was still pretty good, but he threw it less often, and the fastball just got crushed as well. So I think if he and the Guardians studied his usage last year, they should be able to see that the slider was much more effective than his other pitches in these situations. And then it's on him to figure out how to command on the edges of the corner again. Let's just hope it had nothing to do with a certain sticky substance.
Yeah, I'm interested to see this year how much the stickiness, how much people have adjusted to the stickiness or lack thereof, rather. And if that is we saw guys like Jack fall off at the end of the year last year when they started banning it, and then we'll see if with the off season if they worked on their craft a little bit more. But Plesac might be one that was definitely interested to see. So, Mitch, you have a go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say I'm also somewhat hopeful that MLB institutes some sort of like legal sticky stuff or a pre-tacked ball or something along these lines.
Yeah.
Just to discourage cheating and to allow pitchers to have that good grip. I mean, if it affects Plesac's command that much, then clearly it can affect pitcher's grip and release the ball pretty significantly.
For sure. But you had mentioned in your Plesac section there that you were you have Plesac haters here. Both Ethan and I were in prep for this. We were actually writing out that I think both of us were thinking Plesac was actually going to be out of the rotation by the end of the year. So for you to say that he's your number 2 guy, that's a pretty big spot for where he has.
Well, you said bold.
Yeah, I'm good with bold. I want bold. Ethan, what do you have anything on Plesac? Why do you think he's going to be out of the rotation?
So I still need to do some digging on Plesac because there's a lot of nuance to some of the stuff that could be going wrong with him, and I think it extends beyond sticky stuff. Even because it was an in-season ban last year for the sticky stuff, and he was not good before then, and he
got hurt almost right away. But
was it immediately?
It was like a month into the season.
Okay, so he still had at least a couple of starts before it was gone, and I just wasn't on the train, but I'm still looking into it. I kind of scrapped him last minute because it was getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and it could honestly be an entire debate as a podcast between Mitchell and I about Plesac is where that was headed this morning. But
I thought about making the bold prediction he is either the number 2 pitcher or out of the rotation, but I decided that was not bold enough, so I just went with the bolder of the two.
It's a pretty extreme swing. It could have worked either way for you, depending on how you wanted to argue it. But Gerbs, I like that you brought up Savale because doing prep for this the last 2 days, I kept trying to think, what would I say about Aaron Savale? What would I say about Aaron Savale? Because all he does is exceed his peripherals. A lot of numbers on that guy is that he should be terrible, and every year he's really reliable. And I was just thinking he's the next phase of evolution of Josh Tomlin, and I have nothing more to add to that.
Oh, I constantly pitch around in my head of Charmander, Charmeleon, Charizard, and him being the Charizard of Josh Tomlin's Charmander.
I'll complete it for you. You've got Derek Lowe as Charmander, Josh Tomlin as Charmeleon, and then Aaron Savale as Charizard.
There we go.
We've done it. We've
full evolution tree. That's all we need.
Pokemon's here, baseball's here. I'm in bliss. But I will start with at least my unique take. And this one is going to suck to hear, but Brian Shaw is going to be the best middle reliever that the Guardians have this year. I am not sold on
Spicy.
I am not sold on Plesac, or not Plesac. I'm not sold.
You're not sold on Plesac. We've discussed this, but we can move on.
I'm not sold on Hentges. I'm really hoping the Logan Allen and Bradley Zimmer experiments end each other in the next 2 weeks. I don't want to see him up there. I have mixed confidence in Eli Morgan. I think his changeup is one of the filthiest pitches on the entire pitching staff, but the fact that he can't set it up without velocity or pinpoint command of his other stuff makes him kind of streaky. If I had to guess right now, they would probably switch between Goes and Karinchak for that setup role, having dueling righty-lefty hard fastballs before leading to Clase. As much as I don't like that, I don't think Shaw has enough in the tank to be the eighth inning setup guy to get those holds again and again, but I think he will be the most consistent middle reliever. I saw a fantastic joke this afternoon that Shaw was 124 appearances away from setting Cleveland's all-time relief appearance record, and somebody said, knowing Terry Francona, he'd have it by July, and I just thought that was hilarious. But
and Shaw would be fine with that.
He's an absolute workhorse, and especially in the early parts of the season, I was watching Clase pitch this afternoon during the spring training game against the Dodgers, and he didn't have any giftable pitches, so he's not quite in midseason form. But I had that weird thought in the back of my head where, man, I'm thrilled to watch a full season of this guy as our closer. But if the starter gets hooked in the fifth, who's taking 6, 7, and 8? So I would have confidence that Shaw could handle the sixth consistently, and then it is just an absolute disaster between Shaw and Clase.
Yep, I don't disagree with you on that one. So, especially with the crap sandwich that is the middle of our bullpen. For one of my bold predictions, going back to someone we talked about with the arbitration guys, Cal Quantrill. I was looking at his StatCast data, and I have him. Was kind of surprised that he was as good as he was, but he had last year was 81% hard hit percentage, meaning that he was good at limiting hard hit percentage. My bold prediction is he will be in the 90th percentile this season. Keeps guys off edge with his mix of pitches. Statcast has 6 different pitches for him. I think that's just a little bit of misnomers because there's a couple pitches that were only 100 pitches, 107. So, I mean, it was just a little bit of things that maybe the slider didn't move as much as the cutter or was what he was wanting. But his ability to limit hard contact is what's helping him out. And that's what, because his K percentage is down at 22%. I think keeping the bat off the ball, like I said, I enjoy guys that pitch to contact, and that's Quantrill as much as it's Savale as well, without getting that big miss pitch. So Cal just keeping that going and limiting the hard contact will definitely help him, as Mitch said, possibly be the number 2 or number 3 in the rotation. So that's mine. Anybody have any feelings about Cal Quantrill that they want to talk about, or
mind if I take this one?
Go for it.
Yeah, so you and I share Cal on our hot take list, and I'll get to mine in a second, but I really like the guy, and I would just like to point out that some of his numbers were skewed, that he spent a good chunk of the first half of the season either in the bullpen or only able to go 2 or 3 innings because they stretched him out mid-season due to the myriad of injuries. It was really after that All-Star break that he really started to blossom, and I think it was because he cut the slider, or maybe at least without it being in significant leverage situations. I know he really started relying on that fastball, which gets up to 95 for him, and the changeup combo. He gets a lot of guys to just beat it right into the ground. He's got a 43% ground ball rate for his career. He's another one of those guys who has beaten his expected ERA and expected FIP throughout his career so far. But if you look at his batting average on balls in play numbers, which is a pretty good indicator of luck, he's never really strayed too far from average. He was a 2.67 last season, which could suggest some correction towards the mean, but it wouldn't overinflate his numbers too much from where he ended last year. So my bold prediction with Cal Quantrill is that Mitchell owes me $10. Shortly after I joined the WFNY website, it might have been within the first 2 weeks, I found out that Mitchell was a betting man, and we had to put our money where our mouth is. We got into a nice little debate about Quantrill in a second half. Mitchell didn't think it was repeatable, and I am all on board with Cal being our number 2. So we have a $10 bet in place for the 2022 season. I think Cal Quantrill will win at least 10 games with an ERA of 3.80 or better.
That's pretty spicy as well, to use a Mitchell word. Do you have any
What's that?
rebuttal on that one? Do you are you ready to pay up on this one? Because
I'm not ready to denigrate someone on a podcast. I tried to pick all positive things, but if I have to, Quantrill is. I mean, I want him to be good. Obviously, I want him to be the guy that he was last year because I'm a Cleveland fan, and he had a 2.89 ERA, and that's a lot of fun. But until I just have a hard time believing guys who limit hard contact and have that kind of success with it. And he does. He does limit hard contact, but I think we'll see some regression. I think he's a major league starter. I just think he's more of an innings eater type, which is absolutely fine. Like that is something that every good team needs. So nothing wrong with that. I just don't see it. I don't see the ERA. The wins could happen because I don't believe in pitcher wins, but
for the record, anybody listening, Mitchell did not counter me with he thinks he'll have an ERA over 5. He just does not think it'll be 3.8 or lower. So he's not rooting against him. This is just we had a gentleman's debate about where we think his final numbers are going to end up.
I hope he doesn't give up a run next year.
Right.
I'll gladly give you $10 if that happens.
You and me both. I'll take it.
All right, Mitch. What was one of your bold predictions?
I'll go with the shared one. So my bold prediction for Tristan McKenzie is that he will finish the 2022 season with a sub 3.5 ERA. Last year he finished the year with a 4.95 ERA, certainly below average. But it really was a tale of two halves for McKenzie, and it was so clearly some sort of mental hurdle for him to get over. I think I would have a mental hurdle if I were that talented and still hearing my name at a major league park and seeing my name on the screen. And McKenzie seems like a thoughtful, pretty introspective person. I could see that bothering him. And when you look at his second half numbers, I should mention he did also pitch in 2020, but it wasn't in front of fans. It's not really quite the same. If you look at his splits between his first and second half, the numbers are pretty telling. First of all, his fastball velocity was over a mile per hour, over a tick higher in the second half after he was recalled from the minor leagues on July 9th. His walks in the first part of in this first half of the season, he had a walk rate over 20%, meaning he was walking over 1 out of every 5 batters. That's horrendous. In the second half, it was down to 6.2, which is not just palatable, but downright good. While his strikeouts didn't suffer too much, they went down about 6 percentage points. And so really the next step for him is to be able to throw his slider and curveball with more command, get guys not only to chase those pitches, but to swing and miss, get them to swing at his pitch. And I'm betting on the personality. I really, really like Tristan. I think he's a smart guy. I think he works really hard. I'm counting on him to keep that fastball velocity up. And I really do think, even though it's contradictory with my last bold prediction, he could be the second best guy on this roster. And that's not just by default. I think he could be like a legitimate, like very above average major league pitcher by the end of the season.
Okay. Yeah, I agree. I really enjoy, I'm agreeing with you. Ethan, you were the one that was also connected to Tristan. What was your thoughts on him?
So I'm right there with Mitchell. And I know on the last pod we talked about McKenzie's got a lot of those quiet leadership qualities, and he reminds us of a bunch of guys who have been successful in this league. And I just think it's absolutely incredible that his fastball velocity might be higher than his total weight. And I've listened to Andre Knott joke around with him in the dugout in these spring training games, telling him he needs to eat some meat and he's going to take him out to a steak dinner and all of that. I'm right there in line with you. My bold prediction for McKenzie is right on par with Mitchell. But like Mitchell is going to owe me $10 at the end of 2022, Marcus Stroman is going to owe Tristan McKenzie a Rolex at the end of the 2022 season. He and Touki Toussaint back in January were talking about how they needed a Rolex and they really wanted it badly, and they were on those rookie deals, not making a ton of money, not quite Rolex money, still good money. But Marcus Stroman, current Chicago Cubs pitcher, chimed in after Tristan tweeted saying that he needed one and said, if you go over 160 innings with a 3.7 ERA or lower, Marcus Stroman is going to buy Tristan McKenzie a Rolex. And I think he's going to get it.
Man, that would be the dream if he got 160 innings. I would love that. I hope you're right.
That's the part that concerns me. It's not the ERA. I think he absolutely has the stuff, but even towards the end of last season when he was really good, we did see a lot of maintenance skips in the rotation for McKenzie. And it may be something that starts out too, because he's still a young guy. He may only get to 140, 150 this season. I think 160, I think Stroman nailed a perfect over-under number where he's comfortable not having to buy a guy a Rolex. So that's going to be the one to watch, not so much the ERA.
Just to finish off the McKenzie conversation, I mean, you look at the velocity numbers for McKenzie. I mentioned he went up a tick in the second half of last season, up to 92.7 miles per hour. And some of you might be thinking out there, that's below average. That is true. It is below average in Major League Baseball in 2021, likely 2022. But the thing about McKenzie is that he is in the 87th percentile in terms of the extension he gets on his pitches. So yes, the distance from the mound to home plate is 60 feet 6 inches, but because of those long levers, he actually releases it closer than most guys. And you combine that with his ridiculous true backspin. He gets incredibly unique movement on the ball, plus that really, really great extension. He is a nightmare for batters to stand in the plate against, especially right-handed batters. So yeah, he doesn't need elite velocity. I mean, it'd be great if he added it. It'd be great if he added muscle. But I think he can be an effective pitcher right now.
Yeah, and he's shown that he has the ability to be that effective pitcher going forward. So, I definitely think that he has it in it, and he's good to go. So, my last bold prediction, pretty bold, is James Karinchak gets 10 plus saves on the season. So, for me, this is as bold as it gets. This is not any kind of downplay on Clase at all. I think it's just literally one. Tito likes to mix up guys, and getting extra saves is something that he likes to do. Get his guys some rest. As much as he likes pitching, the same guys every time. Going in that order that he gets. He also does like to get his guys some rest every once in a while. So we talked about Karinchak having the problems with the lack of sticky stuff last year, but I definitely think that he could. I'm hoping that he put in the work over the offseason to get some of that command back, because what we saw last year was pretty awful after the ban. Which we expect that's what was the situation, but
it was so good before.
He was as good as anybody in the league before the sticky stuff, and then when it went away, the wheels really did come off. So we're hoping that he either find something that worked for him. Major League Baseball has said that they will allow a certain level of it with the pine tar and SPF sunscreen that they have. That there is something like that a level of that they do allow, but there is the spider tack with Garrett Cole and holding the cinder block on his hand. That kind of stuff is what they're really getting rid of. So maybe he found a concoction that works. I'm not trying to say that he is cheating or that anything. We're just drawing correlations here that as soon as the ban went into effect, Karinchak really kind of fell off. So
yeah. But guess what? Sticky stuff doesn't make a pitcher. Like, he has
For
to
sure.
be able to throw. If I put sticky stuff in my hand, I would give up a home run every time I threw the ball. I mean, he still is good. It bears reminding. Last year, Major League Baseball league average K percentage was 23.2%. 23.2% of plate appearances ended in a strikeout. In 2019, in Double-A, James Karinchak struck out 66.7% of batters he faced, and in Triple-A, 53.8%. Like, yes, it was sticky stuff aided, but those numbers are like comic book numbers. That's like what Superman would get. I mean, that's ridiculous. So there's still something to hope for there.
For sure.
I'm with you. I'm with you, Groups.
If the entire league adjusted to the lack of sticky stuff or used sunscreen and rosin, like was suggested that they were pretty lax on, I have some belief that James should be able to recover. It's just you don't want the worst case scenario, which I think is what happened to Tyler Glasnow last year, where he had to leave a start early and he said, yeah, I'm having to grip the ball harder than ever to get my break, my movement, all of that, and then wound up needing Tommy John surgery and is going to miss most of this season, if not all of it. So that was something that was definitely to worry about with Karinchak throwing as hard as he does, especially without the sticky stuff, because if he was throwing it that hard and he didn't have the sticky substance, then if the batter didn't know where it was going, he sure as hell didn't. So I think he just needed the extra time in the minors. I don't have them in front of me, but I think he improved over the course of the season while he was down there. So hopefully he's had the entire offseason now to work on it. And I know I said earlier, I think he's going to be one of those setup guys in the eighth inning alongside Ghost, the dueling opposite-handed flamethrowers, but it's still going to give me heartburn and anxiety until he's got a string of solid outings together.
For sure.
Yeah.
Mitchell, you had one more bold prediction that nobody else had, and Ethan's all used up on his takes. So give us your last one, and then we can finish up here for the night.
Sure. I was joking in the little Google Doc we have that my bold predictions were all about a tale of two X. I was kind of making fun of the tale of two cities trope. It mostly like, this is silly. I don't know. I thought it was kind of funny that, like, different roles guys have different performances in different years, and that's like so much of what baseball analytics is trying to figure out what's real and what's fake. And we have these two groups. And I think this might be a little bit of circumstance. But my last one is Sam Hentges' tale of two roles. And really, I mentioned this last week, but it really is just kind of galling. Sam Hentges was a starter for most of last season. As a starter, he pitched 41 innings. He faced 198 batters. As a reliever, only 27.2. So I guess he appeared in more games as a reliever, but it was pretty 50-50 in terms of how what role he was in. As a starter, he walked under 20%, and he walked about 14%. You don't have to know too much about baseball to know that you want to walk few batters and you want to strike out a lot of batters. That's usually key to success for pitching.
Stands to reason, you want to get them.
Yeah, I think generally we can all agree that strikeouts are good for pitchers and walks are bad. So yes, he barely struck out more than he walked as a starter last year, but as a reliever, he struck out 26.7% of his batters, and he walked just 4.2. There was no more of this, nibbling, no more of this, terrible, I have to make it 2 or 3 times through the order, so I have to throw the perfect pitch. He just went out and attacked. And it showed in the home runs that he allowed as well, because as a reliever, he allowed an extreme amount of home runs. And as a starter, he allowed much fewer. Here it is. Per 9, he allowed 0.88 homers as a starter and almost 2 as a reliever. So maybe he could stand to be a little more cautious. But the point is, Sam Hentges struck out a lot of batters as a relief pitcher and walked very, very few of them. That is like not all of pitching, but that's a gosh darn lot of pitching. And if Sam Hentges can just continue to throw those numbers and maybe get a little more experience, maybe avoid the middle of the zone as much. He has a lot of room for error being 6'8" and throwing 97, but he doesn't have infinite room for error. And as he kind of plays with that, learns his repertoire, learns how he can get out major league hitters more consistently, I really think we're looking at a guy who can be a high leverage relief pitcher, which is awesome. It's great to have kind of like a physical kind of beast coming out, giving guys a different look. Imagine the starting pitchers, Aaron Savali, a 6 foot tall righty, and then you switch immediately to Sam Hentges, who's almost a foot taller and coming from the opposite side of the plate and throwing about 10 miles per hour harder. I mean, this is the stuff you dream about. So yeah, my hot take is that Sam Hentges will be, let's just say he's the 7th inning guy by the end of the season.
I feel
I like that.
Yeah, I feel pretty good with that one.
I don't hate that either, too, because Hentges was a guy last year that was thrown to the Wolves. I think he may have only gotten one start at AAA last season before being called up and called to action early on with some of the injury struggles that the Guardians faced. So, he's a guy who pretty much only has trial by fire. He doesn't have the full development track that you would like for a guy. He's only going to be 25 this season. So
yeah, he'll turn 26 in season, I think.
Yeah, so
this will be his age 25 season. You're right.
Yeah, so there's a lot to love about the overpowering both pitches and his frame, and he's going to have room and time to grow and develop into it. It's just, can he pick it up on the fly?
Yeah. You were, Mitch, one thing you mentioned, the different looks. The bullpen is for sure. This is not anything that you can ever bet on here. We have, just looking down the list of, you have Eli Morgan, who's starter turned in the bullpen for right now.
We should be
kind
clear.
of the swing guy.
You're on roster resource right now, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. Yeah, we're using roster resource on Fangraphs.
Yes. But just going straight up from the bottom, Eli Morgan, righty. Ethan was talking about how good his changeup is, and the possibility that it's one of the better pitches on the staff. Logan Allen,
looked like he gained some good weight today too in spring training. It's early. We don't have. I'm hoping that it increases velocity, because it'd be pretty sweet if you could go out there and throw 92, 93 instead of 89, 90. But we'll see.
Yeah. Logan Allen, the older Logan Allen, lefty out of the bullpen. There's Eniel De Los Santos, the non-roster invitee, who's to say that he's going to actually make it. But there's Trevor Stephan, that was a Rule 5 pick, holdover from last year. Righty, as you hate to hear the word average, but as average of a guy as there is. Then you go Sam Hentges, or lefty, big swinging Andrew Miller type guy. Nick Sandlin, submariner right-hander. Brian Shaw coming at you with the curve and the 97 from last year. Anthony Goes, lefty. James Grinchak has that awkward where he looks like it looks like the ball is coming out of the top of his head when he throws it. Somehow falling away from while he's throwing. And then Clase come in with the 100-mile-an-hour heat. I think there's maybe one or two guys that look the same coming out of that bullpen. That's going to have a lot of lineups, really freaked out that you can't get set on any kind of one thing. And the way that rosters are built anymore, you don't have a problem with lefty or righty or anything like that. You can bust those things up. So.
Yeah, I mean this in the absolute nicest, least rude way possible. When I say they're a bunch of weirdos, I mean,
for sure,
none of them are normal. Yeah, they all either throw submarine or like they're a weird rubber. They're a person made out of rubber in Brian Shaw's case. Like none of them, other than Stefan, are like at all normal. Like Emmanuel Clase just like throws the ball and it's like 100 miles per hour and also has more movement than half the guys in the league. I mean,
right?
They're all just a bunch of weirdos.
Clase is the most effortless 100-mile-an-hour pitch that with a tail that comes out, streaming away from you. So,
Yeah.
all right, guys.
I
Go
was
ahead,
going
Ethan.
to say, last point, not to mention they do still have a couple of guys down on the farm system who could be major bullpen pieces not too far from now. So even if things get rough, there's probably guys they can go to in the well, like a Nick McLodgechack. I've seen this guy, Robert Broom, pitch a little bit in spring training, who has a really funky submarine style, Adam Simber-esque hop to him. It's kind of fun. And then even guys just towards the top of the farm, like a Justin Garza or Kirk McCarty, maybe in an emergency situation, could come up and take a long relief kind of position. So I think we're more set as a team in the bullpen than the rotation as far as the pitching factory goes, but they should be able to at least patch something together.
For sure. Yeah, I as I'm coming around a little bit more on the bullpen just by the way we're talking about it, but there still is some hope. Still some need for some guys in there, but there's
these are bold predictions.
So,
this
for sure.
None of what you heard today will probably be true.
Everything
was wrong.
I asked for spicy, and you guys provided spicy, so I appreciate that. So, we did have a couple comments from Kevin, so I just wanted to make sure he was watching on Facebook, and we definitely appreciate all the comments. I was very excited for Cal Quantrill when he came over in the trade, and the 2.5, as Ethan mentioned, is definitely a steal for his salary. So, that is it for us tonight. Anything else that you guys have for tonight?
Pay Jose Ramirez.
Man, just sign the guy.
Give him what he wants.
Get in your car and drive down, Rafa. I don't get in a plane or get the deal done. That's what secure the bag. Get it over with. Get it done.
Bottom line.
Whatever he's asking for, he's worth more. Just give it to him.
Yeah.
Is there a move, real quick? Is there a move that you think will be done by next week when we pod again?
You're really putting me at odds with my glass half full attitude that I'm trying to have. Sure. Yeah, there's a move. Yeah, we're going to trade for Sean Murphy.
From your lips to God's ears, my friend. So, yeah, I think we will. I do think that there's going to be something. I predict another bullpen arm added from somewhere. Everybody's thinking they're getting the band back together, bringing back Andrew Miller, which wouldn't be awful, and it would be able to be somebody that teaches Sam Hedges how to do what he's doing. But
it's better than Blake Parker
for sure. But yeah, I definitely think that we're going to start seeing some guys coming in and some guys moving out of the 40-man. But Ethan, you got any moves you think of, or?
You took mine, so I'm going to go out on the limb. I think we have seen enough of Bradley Zimmer this preseason. 7 strikeouts and 10 at-bats. Put Quan in the lineup, get him out of here, DFA him, and sign Tommy Pham.
I'd be okay with that. We mentioned also, like I said, we will go over hitters next week. Probably have some bold predictions on that, so we can finish out a team preview in this abbreviated offseason that we've had this podcast for. But one thing that I will probably talk about is Fran Mills' ability out in the outfield. They had him out in left today, and it's at least twice they've had him out this week out in left field. So we'll see how much that experiment is actually going to hold, or if they're going to go down on the farm and bring up somebody like Quan, or maybe Richie. Is it Palacios?
Palacios.
I always go with you guys on that one. So, all right. Well, that is it for the WFNY CornerCast. Thank you guys for coming out and watching us tonight on Facebook, on YouTube Live. We'll have the podcast out on your streaming, whatever you listen to, Apple Podcasts, Spotify. We'll have that for you tomorrow. You guys stay safe out there. All right. Good night.